Hello girls, gays, and non-binary babes. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a hot second since I've been here, but wedding planning is something. I have 4 months to go until my wedding and we are in like go mode, so it's been a lot. Life has been a lot, so I haven't really been around much. Sorry about that, but I am back. Hopefully I will be returning to regular uploads, but we will see. Definitely after 4 months I will be, because once everything's done being planned, then I can finally take a breath. But anyway, today, obviously you saw the title, we are here to talk about my favorite books of 2022. This is always my favorite video of the year to make for obvious reasons. And this year I'm really excited about all of the different books that I read. I didn't read my normal genre or age range. I usually read YA and fantasy, but I have moved out of that, and this year I'm just really excited to talk about these books. So some of these books I don't actually own and still have yet to buy. I just have not gotten around to buying them, or for whatever reason. So in no particular order, we are gonna jump right on into it with the first book I have here. It's just at the top of my stack, and that is The Iliac Crest by Christina Rivera Garza, translated by Sarah Booker. This was so good. I feel like I'm gonna say that for every book. Obviously it was so good, but this one in particular really snagged my interest because it talks a lot about gender, and it talks about gender through the lens of somebody who's not from the US and somebody who I feel like knows a bit more than I do about gender, to say the least. And I just think this was phenomenal. It's been a minute since I've read it, so I can't tell you all of the nitty-gritty details of what makes this book amazing, but I do know that it is a fantastic dive into gender and what makes someone their gender, and it's really good. It's super short and I just flew right through it. It's basically about this man who is visited one night by two women, one he knows and one he doesn't, and it's a night that just delves into obviously gender and identity and what makes you you. It's fantastic, and if you're looking for translated works, I'd highly recommend it. But overall, yeah, easily one of my top 10 favorite books of the year. Next up, I have a book that has been making the rounds recently for a very good reason, and that is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Aztarica. Listen, I should have expected loving this so much. I love horror. The more gruesome, the better, and the more it takes on morality, the more I love it. So this one was a no-brainer for me. If you don't know what it's about, it follows a man who lives in a dystopian world, like a dystopian version of our world, where we eat humans. Basically, there's a virus that has killed off a lot of the animals that we eat, and so now we have resorted to eating human flesh. And I think it's just a very interesting story. Of course, I read it when I had a stomach bug, which was a bad idea on my part. But I think what really made this, like what really sent this to the top of the list, was the last few lines in the book. If you know, you know. I'm not going to spoil it if you don't, but yeah, I definitely recommend it. But if you have a weak stomach, maybe not. But it's definitely fantastic, and it just makes you think, and I love books that make you think, so yeah. Next is one that kind of brings me back to my roots. and that is For the Throne by Hannah Whitten. This one kind of is the outlier in this list. It's the odd one out because it is the only like true fantasy novel, like high fantasy with magic and stuff. But this is a sequel to For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten, and I just love this series. Something about it really brings me back to like when I first read A Court of Mist and Fury, or not, A Court of Thorns and Roses, I guess, because that's the first book in the series. But I was just so invested in like the romance and the story, in learning everything about these characters, and I really missed that, and it made me feel like a teenager again, and I loved it. This is definitely an adult fantasy, and I think this was an incredible way to wrap up the story, and it was just phenomenal, and I loved it. It definitely was a roller coaster of emotions, and it was just fantastic. The first book is basically a Red Riding Hood retelling, obviously, and it's full of magic, and it's very like dark cottagecore-y. Like if cottagecore was a fantasy book, this would be it. And the romance is wonderful. I love it so much, and yeah, so of course this one had to be on this list. The next book is The Loosening Skin by Aaliyah Whitley. This one was sent to me by Savvy from Savvy Reads Books, and you know, sometimes I get a package in the mail from Savvy and I'm like, what in the hell is she recommending me? This wasn't necessarily one of those, but there were a few in this package that I was like confused, but I loved literally all of them. I will always take her word for what I should read next. And obviously it worked out quite well because this was one of my favorites of the year. And I think this was like one of the first books I read in the year too, so I just get lucky like that. This was so good. I very vaguely remember much about this because I read it a year ago. So our main character, so she lives in this world where people molt and shed their skin and grow new skin. But she has like a disease where they happen more often, and it changes like everything about her life, who she is, who she loves, who she trusts. What I loved most about this book was how it really represented changing as a person, and how when you change, you don't necessarily control that, but when you do change, your whole life changes, and that can change who you love and who you interact with and all this different stuff. And I think it was just really incredibly crafted and fantastically done, and I definitely need to reread this soon because I just truly loved it so much and cannot recommend it enough. It's fantastic. Thank you, Savvy, for sending it to me because this truly was a life-changing book and I just adore it. Next, we have another horror book, and this was unexpected to say the least. And that was Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by Patrick Suskind. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's the story of a murderer, but it's a very fascinating and easy to read. It's an intriguing plot to the point where like you don't want to put it down. The most interesting thing to me was how the book explained how perfumes are made and how like the scents work. That was just so fascinating, and I loved that. I'm always interested in like stuff like that, so I really liked it. But basically our main character was born with no like physical scent to him. Like, you know how you go to people's houses and they're like, it smells like this person. He has no scent to him, and he has a very strong sense of smell, and he commits these murders based off of his sense of smell, and it's just all so fascinating, and like it's like a train wreck. You can't take your eyes away, but it's terrifying and awful but wonderful. and I just really like this one. This is definitely an oddball, and it's hard to explain why I liked it so much, but I think it just itched that part of my brain that was interested in a story like this. And sometimes that's all that you need to happen to love all that needs to happen for you to love a book, and that's what happened here. The last book that I have physically with me is a big boy, The Resurrectionist by E.B. Hudspeth. I freaking loved this book. I think this book has been, or was making its rounds when it first came out, I believe, because of the cover and how interesting it looked. I actually have a full print of this cover framed in my library because I loved it so much I bought a print. But basically, this was another one of those books where it just itched that part of me that has these weird interests. And one of those interests is cryptids, or like mythological creatures. And this one is about the first like third of it, maybe half. The first third to half of the book is about this man's life. And he was like a doctor, and like a mad doctor, like a mad scientist, but not a scientist, a doctor. And it follows his insane life and these creatures that he like created. And then the rest of the book is this beautiful artwork of all these creatures. I guess that worked pretty well. I want to show you like full page spreads, and this is so gorgeous. I love stuff like this. I love when the book really like fully just nosedives into what it's trying to be, and I really respect it. And that's the kind of author I want to be. So obviously I loved this. Obviously it had to be on this list. It's just absolutely phenomenal. So the next four I don't own, but I'm going to obviously talk about them anyway because they are on this list. And the next one, just kind of pick randomly. We will go with This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. So this one, I don't know what I was expecting from this, but it really just changed my whole life. This book it deals a lot with grief and loss and sadness, but it's also terrifying. I remember like the first half reading it and being like, not much that's scary here. This is just really sad and really makes me want to cry. But towards the end, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this is horrifying. It's about a man who loses his wife and his life after that. I don't really know what to say without going into like spoiler territory, but it's genuinely terrifying, and I've never had a book make me like cry so hard and then fear for my life so quickly afterwards. It was insane and I loved it. So obviously top 10 of the year. Next up we have Vida Nostra by, I'm gonna have to look at the names for this one, Marina and Sergei Diachenko. This, oh my goodness, this is like The Secret History, not like The Secret History. I don't know what this is like. This is like the book series that shall not be named on crack, like legit crack. What do I say about this book? So this is another translated book, which I'm now realizing that's really cool. There are 2 translated books on here. It's about this girl who is basically chosen to go to this really prestigious unknown kind of school, and what do I say about this book? Basically the goal of this school is not the goal of most schools, and that's all I can say. I don't really know how to explain it. Do I know how the ending happened or what happened in the ending? No. Was it phenomenal? Yes. Was it the most batshit crazy thing I have ever read in my life? Yes. And I cannot recommend it enough. It was so good, so interesting, and I love books where you can tell that the authors either have to be geniuses or on drugs. And maybe this one is both. Next up, second to last, but obviously, like I said, no particular order, we have Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafka. Dania Kukafka. Kafka, yes. This book, I don't even know how I found out about it, but it was so intriguing. This is about a man who is on death row, and it's following a reporter, I believe, who is like documenting his story and whatnot. And I don't know, it's just something about, it's like somehow like something like how the true crime girlies are with true crime, I am with fake crime. I just really like books about fake crimes because there's no like human attachment to it. There's no real act of violence that's been done. So this one, I just really like the way it talked about the media surrounding murderers versus their victims. I think if you are a true crime girly, you should read this. I think it's very intriguing, and I think it's an important read, especially if you like to consume that kind of media. It's just very, it makes you think again, and I like books that do that. And I like books about murderers, so of course this could do no wrong in my eyes. I just really liked it, and it's one of those books where I have a hard time explaining why I loved it so much. It just really hit the spot for me, oddly enough. And the final book I want to talk about today is the one, the only Babel by R.F. Kuang. So I feel like this is going to be on most people's top of the year list, and for good reason. This book was fantastic. What else can I say? It's again one of those books where you read it and you're like, I could never ever fathom something like this. Like, I just remember sitting there thinking of how smart R.F. Kuang is. And of course she has like multiple degrees from multiple very high prestigious schools, so she is probably more intelligent than I could ever imagine being. And I think that's very evident in Babel. It's a very intelligent book. It's smart, but it's fun, and it's easy to read, and the plot is not fast-paced, but you don't want to put it down. You always want to see what happens next. And I think for a book of this size and what it's about, that's a very hard thing to do, and I think R.F. Kuang did it really, really well. And like I said, I think this is going to be at the top of people's lists for very good reason. It's a fantastic book, and I couldn't find a single thing wrong with it. I really couldn't. I think it was phenomenal, and I don't know what else to say. So that is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you are as happy as I am that I'm back. I don't know, maybe not. Please share with me your favorite book down below, your favorite book of this year, past year. Down below, I do want to know. So please share it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.